Hey everybody, it's Greg here with a quick note. The artwork that is posted on our Instagram and social medias for this episode were done by Justin Santora, who also did the logo artwork for our podcast. If you go to justinsantora.com and you find some amazing prints that Justin has done and you want to order some things from him, you can enter the code unscripted at checkout and you can get 10% off of your entire order. And we just love Justin and we're so stoked that he enjoys the podcast and he continues to collaborate with us. So go check out a cool friend of ours, justinsantora.com, enter unscripted, 10% off.
You're listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. On this episode, we're discussing Victory Lap, the opening track from the 2017 album of the same name, Victory Lap. This is our 7th Victory Lap episode. And Greg, I want to start by saying that one of my favorite things that we get to do each episode is revisit reviews for the album that we're discussing that week. So here, Victory Lap. And quite often it leads me to some really great write-ups that either I missed or I forgot about. And despite the fact that I literally co-host a podcast about propaganda, so often I find descriptions that make me just pine out of jealousy for music writers' abilities to describe my favorite band better than me. I mean, check out this description from Bill Fetty from Heavy Blog is Heavy. He wrote, "The real strength in what Hannah has delivered on in over 20 years of doing this with Jord and the many talents who have passed through this banged-up operation is that he continues to take aim at the obvious and not-so-obvious elements of our society that hinder equality and really just a better world that would make more sense. Less Talk, More Rock presented a now iconic for many anyway, image 21 years ago in the album art containing the anarchist symbol with the words animal-friendly, anti-fascist, gay-positive, pro-feminist encircled it. Clearly, these are still driving factors for the band, who have also called people who might consider themselves allies out on their bullshit. The necessity of creating something better out of what surely sometimes feels like a collapsing society is something that propaganda have been trying to get people to look at for decades now. If Victory Lap is anything, it's the band collectively saying," and he just put a shrug emoji, "perhaps now people will stop looking at them like the sandwich board wearing paranoiac and join in on a kind of dissent driven by dissatisfaction about what the fuck it is we're truly doing to the planet." And I was like, holy smokes, does that nail this album, I think?
Absolutely, and it's so beautifully said, and it kind of reminds me of a lot of stuff like when David Anthony was here way back when.
Right.
The clarity and the vividness with the way that folks with these writing abilities can describe what this band or any band does, I absolutely respect that work a whole heck of a lot. And, it does show me something interesting as well about how we need to work towards this future, like out of this current doom and gloom that we're currently living in. But, we're only seeming to get worse with each passing year. But it does seem like the band is still extremely relevant, So instead of the paranoia stuff that you were talking about from the 90s, all those things that they've been writing about have become so accurate and true and visible in the world with each passing year.
Right.
And people are seeing it, though. According to some streaming service data that I have in front of me, Propaganda's most popular song is Victory Lap. This song. According to the streaming service, it doesn't pay their artists, so I will not name them. I will not give them any attention. but they have over like around 6.5 million streams of this particular song. This song has 927,000 views on Epitaph's YouTube channel. So this is a song that it resonates deeply because of so many issues in the world that this song tackles within such a short period of time. Like, this is a distillation of our society in a nutshell, to borrow from Call Before You Dig. But I think this one is the one that distills our society down into the nutshell. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I was also wondering, Keith, about the album title. What did you think when you heard this album's name was Victory Lap? Did it signify any thoughts in your mind at all?
Well, I guess just the contrast, Greg, from Failed States to Victory Lap, and how obviously like dark and heavy, being familiar with that album and the title itself just brings up not positive mental images or understandings and interpretations of what's happening around the world. Victory Lap is just the exact opposite of that, though my inkling, I guess, right away was that it has to be some sort of ironic use of that term, that it seems to be like celebratory in a way, but there's no way that I could take it just on face value, that it's just, a cause for celebration. What about you?
Yeah, it's definitely a fantastically ironic title, and folks out there are constantly saying things like, this is the best time to be alive in human history. We're making more strides than ever regarding medical care, human rights, freedom, and that we have essentially achieved the goals of the Enlightenment. I'm thinking about that book from that really famous dude, Steven Pinker. It's called Enlightenment now. That book comes to mind. But he acknowledges like the exploitative nature of demagogues and tribalism and science skepticism, etc. But he also argues that now is the best time to be alive. And I'll concede we have a lot of great things going, but holy smokes, do we have a lot of work to do, If you consider only one issue among all our issues, like the pending collapse of our oceans alone could destroy life on Earth. So to me, the title of this record means that we get so self-congratulatory while smiling and waving our way towards complete devastation. And it's like the most darkly humorous propaganda album title, really, if you think about it in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. Well, I'm glad to talk about this album and this song. So who do you have for the guest this week?
So our guest on this episode is Cheska Colombo, my friend Cheska. She is the host of the fabulous On the Impossible pod, which she makes about her favorite band, the Menzingers, where she and guests do a song-by-song breakdown of the Menzingers' On the Impossible Past record. And Cheska has a full season of her podcast up on all podcast platforms, and it's so wonderful. And I'm a huge Menzingers fan also, and Cheska's show was one of the model shows that I listened to when I was sort of planning out our show. So I listened a ton to her show, and as everybody will know from our episodes where we had Tim Crisp and David Anthony on as guests, and from plugging some of our other favorite shows like Chris Hanna's Catastrophic Break, Escape Velocity, As You Were, Road to the Skeleton Coast, That One Time on Tour, Turned Out a Punk, Mabel Syndrome, Talking Records podcast, Rad Dads, Sounds Familiar, the Weaker Thins podcast, Family Podcast with Josh Kemble. Our friend Randy Frickus has the Talking Hockey podcast, Discography Autopsy, Jimmy Eat Pod, Growing Up Punk, 5 Songs or Less, Last Believer, a podcast about good riddance. Chris DeMakes from Less Than Jake has a great podcast. And Shauna Potter's But Her Lyrics podcast. So, I am a huge fan of supporting other podcasters, and you'd think that it would be the other way around because, we'd all be in competition with each other for, listeners and stuff like that because the audience is so finite. But I see this as, a little family of hobbyists, and that we all do better when we all do better, So I'm really stoked to have Cheska on to talk about loving propaganda, loving Victory Lap. So enjoy my conversation with Cheska Colombo talking about propaganda and Victory Lap. Let's get to it. When the flames engulfed the home of the brave, the stampede to war, the border was in vain. Faces, palm faces pale, as the war they said would make them great could not be Cheska Colombo. Welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you on this show. If you could just spend a moment and introduce yourself to the audience a little bit, I think that would be really great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Cheska Colombo, as I was so graciously introduced. I'm the host of another song-by-song band-related podcast called On the Impossible Pod. If you're a Menzingers fan, hopefully that wouldn't have gone over your head, but yes. It is a song-by-song podcast. We started out by breaking down every song on the Menzingers album On the Impossible Past. And from there, that was our first season. Right now, we're in a little bit of a hiatus for quarantine-related reasons. But after that, we're going to be moving into doing something a little similar to what you guys are doing here, where we're kind of reaching throughout the catalog of all the songs that the Menzingers have put out and discussing it with a different person every time. I like to talk to a lot of just everyday people because the Menzingers are a band that's very, blue collar, common man centered. So I like to hear from a lot of the people who are the people that are next to me at shows, or someone who's in a band that's influenced by the Menzingers and is just like out there roughing it. So that's a lot of what you'll hear on my show. But starting with these new episodes, we're hoping to get some more people on and just chat about literally every Menzinger song till we're done.
Nice. I'm curious, how did you get into doing a song-by-song podcast? Because, I have my story for why I'm doing this one, but I'm curious what inspired your project on the Menzingers, how you actually decided to commit to it, and what that process was like of getting into doing this show that you do.
Sure. So it's kind of cheesy, but I went to a really great show. I went to a very small Menzinger show at a venue in New Jersey called Crossroads, super small stage. The Menzingers play there super often, in the times of shows happening. They usually do like a 3-night residency, which I've been to a few times. But it was back last summer in maybe around like June, early July or so. They had a festival that was canceled in like New York. And to make up for it, they booked like a last minute show at Crossroads. So everybody I knew was just like, yup, we're going to that. That's what's happening here.
Sweet.
And it was probably one of the best shows I've ever been to in my life. And not to get deep too early into the podcast, but I was in kind of a not great place. And that was a show that like I woke up the next morning and felt really good. And
awesome.
Had spent the car ride home with my friend with my boyfriend and with a friend just talking about different Menzinger songs and like digging into the meaning behind them. And one thing that me and my boyfriend do after every Menzinger show we see is like we'll put on the Menzingers after and we'll listen to every song they didn't play.
Awesome.
To talk about that. So I had just gotten some new recording equipment around that exact same time because I was looking to start another podcast that I host called Ain't Seen Nothing Yet about like mid-2000s MySpace scene culture because it's something that was very funny to me and something that like I lived through even though I was kind of adjacent on a lot of parts of. And I was like, you know what? To get used to doing, podcasts and using my equipment, I'm going to do a quick like short, not too long-lived podcast about something. So let me pick an album that I like. What made me feel good recently? On the Impossible Past. So amazing. I kind of just put feelers out there expecting I would be talking to myself a lot. And I was just like, is anyone interested in this? And immediately like filled up all the slots for my songs. Like everybody that I knew wanted to be a part of it. And I spent the rest of that summer just recording episodes with my friends, having them come to the studio, talking about each song and kind of digging into it and researching. I worked at a job where I didn't do much but like surf on the internet. So I had a lot of time to research and I was like, nice. Definitely a something that's good for me in this time right now. And it's turned into far more than just a short little project that I thought was going to go away after a few episodes.
That's awesome. I found your podcast whenever I was on a trip to Washington, D.C. with my family, and I was running near Reagan Airport. There's a bike path in Arlington, Virginia that runs right next to the Reagan National Airport by the Pentagon. And so I'm running and I'm listening to the Menzingers and the song, I think it's called House on Fire.
Yeah.
comes on, and it's like waiting for your life to start, then you die. Whoa.
Yeah.
Is your heartbeat in the first place? And I was like, I had this moment, this visceral reaction where I was just completely overcome with emotion. I
Yeah.
essentially was like on the verge of tears on this bike path, running miles from my hotel. And then after it was over, I went and I just started searching Menzingers in my podcast app, and your show popped up. And
That's so cool.
I was like, oh, cool. A podcast just about the Menzingers. And yours was like the first song by song podcast that I think I discovered. So
Oh, wow.
I more specifically stole my idea from As You Were, a podcast about Alkaline Trio.
Oh, I love that podcast.
So good.
Yeah,
And
so good.
yeah, but yours I think I actually found before that. But those guys, David and Tim from the As You Were podcast, they showed me like the full discography scope idea,
Right.
which is where we got the propaganda to do every song. So I'm super glad that you're expanding yours and you're going to be going into the other records as well, because I liked your limited scope idea, but like, when it ends, it's like I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
And I get to hang out with my friends. And I get to meet cool people, and I don't want this to be over. So like, that's what I love about your show, is that you sort of like were like my gateway into song by song podcasts. And then I heard the Alkaline Trio one, and then it was like from there, it just kind of snowballed. And I more specifically, I didn't like get the idea to do the song by song for propaganda from yours, but like I heard yours first.
I mean, full disclosure, I got the idea to do my podcast from the Alkaline Trio podcast.
Amazing.
So we are very much on the same page, because when that came out,
David and Tim.
I was listening to No Plus Ones, and that was like one of my favorite podcasts. And then when David Anthony went to go on and do something else, I was just kind of like, okay, this sounds cool, and it's a band that I love, so might as well, check it out. And I haven't listened to every episode, but that's kind of, I realized it maybe a week or two into my project when I saw they posted an episode. I was like, oh, I definitely subconsciously lifted this idea from that.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what? Like we've actually had David on our podcast as a guest, and we told him this to his face. And I was like, dude, love your show, man. Like you could not be more of an inspiration to us. So like for me, and since I started doing this propaganda one, I've heard from people online on Twitter and on Instagram who are like, I want to start a song by song podcast, but I'm not going to say what the band names are, because like I don't want to like steal those people's thunder in case they actually are in development on those. But man, some really cool song by song niche podcasts could be coming out that people have told me about. And they're like, do you have any advice for starting this? And I would like, people get on the phone with me, and people like email with me, and I'm like, man, this is how I started it. This is what we do. Here's how you can modify it to fit your needs. But it's just so amazing, the variety that you can possibly do doing a podcast like this,
I love it. I've learned so much, and like it's really cool to give a little bit of extra context to the things that you passively listen to. Like, I'm one of those people where I'll spin an album to death, to the point where I'm in a car and then realize the album's over and I haven't really taken it in after I've listened to it like 1,000 times. Like I got this way with the most recent Interrupters album, where I would hear the beginning of the album and then I would realize it was on the last song, and I'm like, where was I? I just got lost.
That's so cool. Okay, so Cheska, I want to ask your advice.
Sure.
So speak to the people out there who might be hearing this, who are interested in doing their own song by song podcast. Like, say somebody's like, I want to start a podcast about Eddie and the Cruisers or Jesse and the Rippers or whatever.
Yes, please.
Tell me what your formula is for how you go through an episode. How do you approach a song? How do you structure your episodes?
Oh, that's a great question. So I do a kind of a weird thing where before I go and listen to the song again, I will go on the Genius page, like the Genius lyric site.
I do that too.
And take my notes. Yeah, we're probably gonna have similar notes on this song we're talking about just because of Genius, but because sometimes I like to just look at the words as they are, as like a piece of writing, before I go back and listen to the song again. Yeah. So I'll break it down from there and kind of just copy the lyrics as they are into a document and just start taking notes from my consciousness first, of just like, here's my thoughts on the song. And then I kind of click through on Genius, see what other people are saying, and take some notes from that. And then specifically, because Tom May from the Menzingers has been so active on Reddit over the years. I always make a point to, just Google like Menzingers Reddit and then the name of the song.
Nice.
And just see what other people have said about this song, like around the time that it came out, see if there's any lore about the album that I couldn't, or the album or the song that I didn't find anywhere else, or see if there's any interviews or just Reddit AMAs or anything where one of the band members had said something about the song. And that's how I learned so much. Like I learned the address of, the punk house they sing about in Ava House. And I'm like, I don't need this information, but now I have it. So that's something. And then, just obviously listening to that song over and over again with my notes and contextualizing it to the performance and, pausing here and there and just being like, did I mishear this lyric all of this time? And I did, like I mentioned, I did a lot of the research part at work where I couldn't listen to music, but I was at a computer at a box office.
Yeah.
And, didn't have much to do when I wasn't selling people, Paul Anka tickets.
Yeah.
So I would just kind of be digging into this in my own little world and then get in the car afterwards and blast the song for my whole commute home.
Awesome. Okay. So what do you do whenever you're thinking about having a guest on your show to talk about a song? How do you encourage people to find guests, to reach out to guests, to help guests prep? Tell me a little bit about that, because I know that a lot of people would want to have guests on song by song shows too.
Of course. I mean, the way that I handled it the first time is not how I think I'm going to handle it moving forward, just because of what the podcast became. At first, I was really just like, anyone, please talk to me, so I am not talking to myself.
Yeah.
So I reached out really on Twitter to a lot of friends that I went to shows with. And as I mentioned, the moment that I kind of put out there that I wanted people to talk about this, I got a lot of people reaching out. And usually those are the people who genuinely want to talk about this the most. So I always suggest put a call to arms out there, see who comes through. And I guarantee those are going to be some of your most enthusiastic guests to start. And then, kind of just what I did from there, because like I said, I've really only worked with people that I either know personally or have met through the internet or who reached out to me. But I a couple of times reached out to people because I'm like, hey, I know that you specifically have a special connection to this song. Like, do you want to talk about this? And it's really just about knowing people and paying attention to, fellow fans around you and just seeing kind of who's interested in chatting about this stuff. And I've mentioned it before, not just because the Menzingers are kind of like a blue collar, love your friends, love your brothers and sisters kind of band, but I think talking to fellow fans and learning about where they come from and how they got into a band is super interesting. So I don't think any guest is too small. I think,
nice.
Just talk to anyone who's willing to talk to you and then build it up from there.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, let's get into the topic of our chat today. So whenever I reached out to you, I was like, I love your Menzingers podcast. I think it's so cool that you do a song by song podcast. I'm doing a song by song podcast about Propagandy. Are you a fan? And you're like, I am a fan. But I'm a relatively new fan, which I found to be fantastic because we have this band going back decades and people are still able to find them and discover them for the first time, which is so cool.
Yeah.
And when I reached out to you, you're like, yeah, I'd love to do the show. So tell me a little bit about how you found Propagandy's music for the first time and how you kind of came to be a fan of this band. Where was your entry point and how did that process go?
Sure. So a weird kind of anecdote is that for a long time, I had never really heard Propagandy's music or anything like that. But, they're one of those bands, you go to a show, you see the t-shirts, you're like, okay, this is a band that I'm aware of, but I have no idea how they sound. And when I was a teenager, I mixed them up with Fugazi. So in my head, they were the same band because it was just one word name ends in I. So for a while in my head, it was Waiting Room by Propagandy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, I didn't know why. It's just one of those things that when I think about it, I'm completely different bands. There's really not much of a commonality here that I'm aware of. But
their message and music, I mean, there's a lot of commonalities.
More so, I mean, in people and
sure.
Where they come from and all that stuff. So I don't know, it was something I shook eventually and became a fan actually around the 2016 election for obvious reasons, but really what it came down to is, the day after the election, which was like World War Zero for all of us, I couldn't find really anything to do with myself. I was just kind of like, I worked later in the day. So I woke up early, saw the results, felt the way that everyone else felt, and was just like, I need to make a playlist. I need to just like make a playlist of angry songs and political songs and just listen to this, because I can't hear a person utter about anything other than how fucked up all of this is.
Right.
And, I added a bunch of songs that I was familiar with, and I don't know why, but Propaganda is like Spotify's golden child to me. Like, because of all the other music I listen to, they are always on my Discover Weeklies or like on my daily mixes, and even before I started listening to them. So I saw, the song title kind of in the suggested things to add to the playlist, The Only Good Fascist is a Very Dead Fascist.
Absolutely.
And I was like, I'm gonna hit play on this real quick. And I was obsessed with that song for
it's amazing.
so long. And I'd seen even the song title before. It's just like, I'd never actively listened to it. And I got very hooked on it. And then from there, I really only listened to kind of like them on shuffle. I didn't really go through like a lot of albums. I was just kind of like, I'm in the mood for this right now.
Yeah.
Until Victory Lap came out. And it started, popping up on my social media feeds. Once again, Spotify loves this band for me. So I was getting them, every time I finished Menzingers or, Lawrence Arms or, even a Masked Intruder album, it would just be like, we're going to play Propaganda for you right now.
Nice.
And that's when I heard the song Victory Lap for the first time. And I love that riff at the beginning so unbelievably much.
Yeah.
And it hooked me completely. And I just started listening to the whole album, like all the time. And it's probably, I don't know much about like fan opinion, but it must be a weird opinion to have this be your favorite album from the band.
I think it's rare for this to be somebody's favorite record if they're a longtime fan of Propaganda, but Chris Hanna, the singer of Propaganda, says that Victory Lap and Supporting Cast are the two best Propaganda records. So
wow, okay.
The singer of the band says that this one and Supporting Cast from 2009 are the two best. So, if you cool. put any merit in that, like according to Chris, you're spot on.
I notice how bands always do that a lot of the time. They're like, yeah, this newer thing I put out is one of the best. And a lot of the times I disagree with that. And I'm like, oh, you're just saying that. But here I'm like, oh, dude's on point. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I like the heavier nature of a lot of the older stuff. But I don't know, here, just the riffs and the delivery, I love this album. And, songs like Cop Just Out of Frame, really suck me in.
Yep.
And, I don't know. I really got kind of trapped in this album for a while, and that's kind of what helped me branch out and listen to a lot of the rest of it.
So I asked you to pick a song, and you did pick the title track, Victory Lap, from the 2017 LP of the same name. Why did you pick this song instead of another song on Victory Lap? Or, Dead Fascist? Why did you go for this one? Well,
I figured it's my favorite. This and Cop Just Out of Frame are like definitely my two favorites. And I don't know, I just felt Victory Lap. I was just like, I want to talk about this. But song that, obviously this album came out like first year of post, Trump, or not post, but like Trump era punk albums. Yeah. And every day this song becomes more and more relevant. And specifically, we'll get into the lyrics and stuff about it, but just like the lines about like not all cops and not all men, it just feels like what I'm saying all the time.
Yeah.
Just kind of condensed into one song that expresses like, the songs that I write on my own and haven't done anything with. This feels like something that really accompanies my internal monologue. And I love
that's so interesting. Do you almost feel like these words could have been written by you if you had like really hit like a fantastic lyrical writing stride? Like, do you see like something like this coming out of yourself as a songwriter?
100%. When I was in high school and I wrote lyrics like more than I do now because of free time and like the world not pushing you creativity into the ground. I got really into like Rise Against, so like all my lyrics were like this first verse that were just kind of like creating a picture of a revolution that's, you know, in this case squandered, but, you know, just like painting this picture of just people rising up and just, you know, becoming the revolution. And that's how I wrote a lot when I was younger, and now I still write that way, but with a little bit more a little bit more world perspective.
Sure.
So this one really resonates with me.
And possibly, you know, an improved vocabulary that comes with being like a lifelong learner. Like, you know,
Exactly.
you get a little more adept at wordplay over the years as a writer.
Exactly.
So, you know, that makes like those cheesy things that sound so good when we're like 16 not sound nearly as good when we're a little bit older than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was a little try-hardy as a high schooler, and now I'm kind of like, you know, I'm still trying, but I think I have a kind of a better grasp on what sounds better.
I absolutely love that. Okay, so let's talk about the lyrics. I'm just curious if you can tell me some of your favorite lines from the song and maybe what they mean to you, what they remind you of, stuff like that.
Sure. I mean, just to start out on a lighter note, I mean, God, are you there? It's me in the denim jacket.
Yep.
The first time I heard that line, I'm pretty sure I exclaimed like out loud. Like, I'm pretty sure I was like, oh my God, that's so fun. Like, that's so cheeky. And just like, you know, we've heard the variations under it's blank, 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 or mixing it up. And I just, that is just one of my favorite out of context lines kind of anywhere.
Yeah.
I in writing notes for this podcast, I literally just wrote fucking mood. Like, yeah. And you know, that whole kind of verse bridge, whatever it is, where it ends in, can you confirm I'm on the right goddamn planet?
Yep.
I mean, how many times have we thought like that in the year 2020?
Yep.
Like, I feel like everything I see is just, can you confirm I'm on the right goddamn planet?
Yeah.
But that's on a surface level. I think this song weaves so many visuals together. I love the line, I swear to Ayn Rand, I'll ask if he needs an invisible hand. Like, everything that is mixed into that, if you know anything about anything, is unbelievable. Like, the you know, referencing the falls of capitalism, referencing like the, you know, the idol-like status that Ayn Rand has, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and to me, like, you know, I'm sitting here in my house right now, and I'm sitting here. Well, and I don't know if you noticed this, but our Twitter bio for our location, it's the wrong goddamn planet. So
I haven't noticed that.
I have lifted our Twitter location bio directly from this song, but I said that we're on the wrong goddamn planet for sure.
I love it.
But I'm sitting here in my jean cutoff shorts. And every day I look out the window and I'm just like flabbergasted that this is the world as we know it now. And, you know, so that line, while hilarious, is just like a laugh so hard I cry kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
But I just love that. Are you receiving my prayers through the noise and cosmic static? It's just so good. The visual's so funny.
Good.
Chris's sense of humor in the face of this like moment of total despair where you just like want to drop to your knees and scream to the heavens. It just like speaks to me, you know?
Me too. And that's how I handle a lot of hard information and like disbelief in the world, is just like, you can't help but like cynically laugh. And that's why this resonates so much with me, because I feel like a lot of punk music is just like, we have to fight and like we have to do this, and I love that so much, and that gets me hyped, and that's informed so many of the decisions I've made, you know, growing up and trying to be involved. But hearing somebody who can just put into a song the feeling of like, well, fuck, is just so awesome.
Awesome. Do you have any other like little lines or nuggets in the lyrics that really jump out at you?
Oh my God. Yeah, definitely. I like I said, I love this song. The whole verse of, you say not all cops, you say not all men, you insist it's only the 99%, and you know, that obviously resonates in every single possible fucking way right now.
Yeah, tell me more. Say what this means to you.
Yeah, I mean, I literally can picture this person sitting at their desktop computer, specifically, like, you know, half drinking bottles of water crumpled up all around, and just arguing on like a community Facebook page over some stupid shit, like someone just saying,
well,
I don't know,
actually,
these yeah, exactly, just a bunch of well actuallys. And like these are the people who will react to like you saying men are trash with saying not all be the people who will lock the windows on their car when they think they're in a bad neighborhood because they see a certain type of people on the street. Like these are the people who are so mad at overgeneralizations while making more than anybody ever will, and not realizing the hypocrisy in what they're saying. And as the next line in the verse goes, like, there's nothing new for you to learn. Like, they genuinely don't believe that discourse is important, and they think that a new perspective or implying that they should learn something new is taking away their freedom, when in reality all it's really doing is contributing to the freedom of more people.
Well, and they do have a goal, though. The goal isn't critical discourse and learning and understanding. The goal is exhausting their opponent to where the opponent walks away from the Facebook argument, and then they can smugly declare victory on their hypothetical internet argument, where they just essentially wore down their opponent through endless series of, well, actually, but this and but that. So that's the only goal, is exhaustion.
I can't imagine just wanting to wear someone down for the sake of proving a point. Like, I don't ever want to get to a point where I'm trying to get something across and like share how I feel or share what I believe is right, where it genuinely gets someone to a point where it's like, it's not worth talking to you anymore. Rather than like, there will be times where I decide to step away from a conversation because I'm like, this is not worth my mental energy at the moment and I'm not being listened to. But if someone is genuinely like calmly discussing an opposing point of view to me, I'm glad to honor that conversation. I learn from that, and I may be given a perspective that may not change how I feel, but may inform how I look at other people and how I understand where they're coming from. It just baffles me when people can't have any empathy in the way that they speak to others.
Yes. Ugh. Do you have any thoughts on like the whole like apocalyptic imagery within this song, like the flames engulfing the home of the brave?
Oh, yeah.
But then there's also the day the rapture came, the clouds, they opened up and nobody went.
Right. Oh my God. I do love that part particularly, where, I don't know if you watched The Good Place.
Yeah, for sure.
But I get major The Good Place vibes from, the clouds, they opened up and not a single person went, because, spoilers if you haven't watched the show, but, they get to a point where they realize nobody's gone to heaven in like thousands of bajillions of years, because nobody's been worthy. And, yes, that's fiction, but that also just puts into my head so many times where oftentimes it's people who believe that what they're doing is the will of God, who are, if there was to be some sort of morality of judgment, are not nice people, and they look down on other people and they judge other people. And I just love the idea of the rapture coming and, whatever figure in the sky is performing this rapture, like, nah, none of y'all are good enough for this, because all of you have been terrible people to each other and terrible people to this planet. And, reading that line and hearing it in context, I just like, it's once again just so snide and clever, to the point where I'm like, I love the visual of just the clouds opening and just all you see is just light, and people are running out of their houses dropping to their knees, exclaiming to the sky because it's time for them to join Jesus. And none of y'all made it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
It's so great to me, and it's a great counterpoint to the beginning of the song, because the beginning of the song, this idea of everybody trying to get the fuck out of here, but they're shut in by, what I'm assuming is an implication of a wall being built.
Yep.
It's a great look at patriotism, where it's just like, oh, when you idolize your country and can't critique it in any way because you feel that is just something that you don't do, then when you're trapped by it, where are you going to turn? And people who, say like, oh, immigrants should go back to their country. It's like, oh, so you do agree that if you don't like somewhere, you should leave, but then you are so cruel to immigrants. It doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't. So that's kind of what I get from this, is just the idea of running for help and then not being able to get it is such an amazing counterpoint to the end of the song, where now you're looking to the heavens for help and you can't get it because of the type of person you are.
Wow, that is so well said.
Thank you.
I don't even have a follow-up question on that. You just nailed that so hard on the head.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so like, I love the border wall imagery too. And I actually live in Buffalo, so like I only live a few miles from the border.
Right.
So like I'm thinking about this like Canada building their own wall to keep us out for when we try to escape our COVID plague. But like the bridges into Canada right now are closed to all non-essential traffic. So essentially there is like an invisible wall currently there, but it's because of our own obsession with American exceptionalism that keeps us sick and keeps our COVID pandemic raging harder here than just about anywhere else. And Canada has been like, you're not coming in. So like a lot of people like theoretically would run for the border right now to get away from the the groupthink and the ditto heads, but they just can't do it because the Canadians have wisened up and they have closed us off, and then they've sequestered us in our little hellscape here that we have created for ourselves.
That's perfectly said. And I didn't even think about that in a context of it being built up against us.
Yeah. It's so funny.
Wild. I've read there's a book called oh my God, now I'm gonna get it wrong, but there's just a beautiful series of books by an author that I really enjoy that is set in like El Paso, Texas, and so much of it just refers to like their life as like Mexican, their family's life as like Mexican immigrants and stuff like that, and that gets me thinking about that border all the time. And like when I was recently driving through Texas, just kind of reading this book like unintentionally, it struck such a chord with me. It's just like, I'm looking at all this beautiful, off the highway scenery, and there's people here who are telling people that they can't experience this, and that's fucked up. And Canada too. I love the idea. I mean, I wish that I could benefit from Canadian things, but I understand why they would shut us out, because we deserve to be shut out.
We do. At the moment, we currently absolutely do.
Oh my God, so wild.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's we kind of talked a lot about like the lessons learned here within the song. We did a little bit of lyrical dissection. If you have any more lyrical favorite lines and thoughts and ideas, I'm definitely open to talking more about that, but we could also shift gears to the music. So if you have any more lyric ideas, we can go that route, or we can go into the music. What do you think?
We got into everything that I am passionate about. So
Marvelous.
We can definitely move into music here.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you think about the performance of this song, either like the vocal delivery or bass, drums, guitar, whatever jumps out at you as a fan and listener and of music, but also as a songwriter yourself.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier the riff that's the intro to this song is perfect. It's I love a good thrashy riff bringing in a punk song, and let alone bringing in a punk album. Like when I first heard this song, I did not know it was the title track on an album because I was just kind of hearing it at random. And then the first time that I went to sit through and like go through Victory Lap as an album, and I realized this riff on the guitar kicked off this album, I was like, yo, they knew what they were doing.
Oh yeah. No, they're masters for sure. Like they don't play around.
It's just like a I don't even want to say a 1-2 punch, because it's literally just one punch, just like boom, like we're in there. And it, I mentioned that I'm in high school days, and like I still am, like I really was into Rise Against, and that really introduced me, from being a like kind of a mainstream band that's kind of gone more on like the mainstream rock kind of direction. Their older albums were my first kind of experience into like, we're going to start this album with a really fast, like badass, like here we are, this is our new music kind of song. And this really reminded me of those records that I listened to when I was a teenager, and just like, put on my headphones, disappeared from the world, and was like, yup, now's the time. This is the mode I'm getting into. So that riff in particularly really, really, really is my favorite thing. so much.
I hear what you're saying though about those opening tracks from Rise Against records.
Yes.
Like every single Rise Against record, hands down, my favorite song on the record is the first one. Like those guys nail the opening track so much. And I think it was like my favorite one is about one of my favorite Rise Against songs, like the first track on Endgame.
Yes. What is the name of that song?
Holy smokes. It's like they just absolutely...
Architects is the one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. They
Wow.
nail opening tracks. And like, so Rise Against, they speed up their first tracks. Like they've retained that, even though they've gone in rock directions. Like they still keep that first track that kicks things off as a pretty fast 100%. Track. But Victory Lap is those Rise Against songs are like kind of the speed of Victory Lap. So
yes,
Propagandy's actually slowed down a little bit on the song Victory Lap, whereas Rise Against, that's still like more their sped up nature. So like I can totally see where you're making that parallel, because it's about the same speed as a Rise Against song on an opening track, but they both just have that catchy, hooky, big riff kind of thing that draws you in. So I can really see why that song grabbed you as a former Rise Against fan. Or as a Rise Against fan as well, not former, but Rise Against fan in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it took me a long time to realize that's what drew me to it, until I was recommending specifically this album to my boyfriend, where he's more into, we're both into punk rock, but he kind of leans more towards like the metal sounding punk, and then like metal in general. And I was like, dude, I think you would love this album, like specifically this song. Like I could see this being something that you're noodling in our room like at all times on the guitar. And he did end up really liking it. And I always feel good when I give a good recommendation.
I honestly, I have to recommend that your boyfriend, as a metal fan, check out the record Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes, but also the record Supporting Cast. So Propagandy's 2001 and 2009 LPs are very, very much will be up his alley. Very much. Failed States will too. But Supporting Cast is like such a special and unique record for Propagandy that I would totally recommend that the thrash heads out there check that record out if they're going to start off with one.
Cool.
It will draw him in. So get him Supporting Cast for a present. Don't tell him I said this, even though it's going to be on the internet. Who cares?
Great idea. I love this. I'll claim it as my own if you don't mind.
So get him Supporting Cast. He will love it. Promise. If not, I'll refund you the money.
Sounds good. I'll hold you to that.
It's a money back guarantee on the Supporting Cast for me.
Cool. I love it. I know some of the songs on that one, but not in order, so I can't speak to it myself, but that's pretty awesome.
All right. Well, Cheska, this has been super fun having you on the show to talk about Victory Lap, your podcast, On the Impossible Pod. Tell listeners where they can find you if they want to follow you and the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you once again for having me. I haven't guested on a podcast before.
So wow, cool. It's so cool to have you.
Yeah, I've never been on the other side of the mic, so to speak, so I'm really excited about that. You can find us on Twitter at OTI Pod. And from there we're on all of the different places that you can listen to podcasts, and we're also on Instagram and Facebook if that's your thing, but Twitter is where we get a little shit posty and pass some time until the new songs are out.
Nice.
As I mentioned, we completed our first season, so there's 13 episodes out right now, one for each song on the album On the Impossible Past. And in the future, I'll be talking to a whole bunch of people. Hopefully some of you guys, if you're interested.
I'm down. I'm a huge Menzingers fan.
I would love to chat with you about anything. I mean, even just hearing your slight story about House on Fire, like that resonates with me so deeply. And
heck yeah.
I love talking about just those human moments where a song, sounds like exactly what you needed to hear in your brain at that moment.
Oh yeah, it broke me. It just broke me right in half.
I really truly get that. If y'all are, my link tree is also OTI Pod, so that's where you can find all that stuff. And if you're a person who's listening to this and, ends up listening to my podcast and you want to be a guest at any point, there's also a sign up sheet at my link tree, which you can find in any of the social bios, and you could sign up, and I'd love to talk to you even if we've never talked before. And yeah, that's my additional plug is if anybody wants to start a band, please, I need a band.
Right on. What city are you in? Where are you?
I'm in North Jersey. I'm like right outside the city in Bergen County, and I just want to start a band so bad. So, and I don't know anyone who wants to be in a punk band. So, if anyone needs a singer and like a shitty bass player, hit me up.
Heck yeah, that's rad. Everybody, take note and grab Cheska's bass and vocal services. That's so.
I'm
cool.
desperate. If there was a band Tinder at this point, I would be on.
Yeah. Oh my God, that sounds like a new app needs to be developed. Somebody do a band Tinder and put it on the App Store. Hello, designers out there.
I will be on it all day.
Go for it. All right. Well, Cheska Colombo, this has been so rad. Thank you for coming on Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. Everybody make sure to check out On the Impossible Pod.
Thank you.
And just thanks for all the work that you do. And thanks for coming on the show, Cheska.
Of course. Thank you for your kind words about my podcast too. That's so nice. Thank you.
All right, so that was my interview with Cheska Colombo from On the Impossible Pod, a podcast about the Menzingers. Thank you so much, Cheska, for coming on the show. I love your podcast, and I hope that other folks out there will consider checking that out as well. Well, Keith, I want to dive in to talking about this particular song, and I'm wondering if we can switch it up a little bit and get into the lyrics on this for this episode. What do you think? You want to just kind of switch it up this week and go with the lyrics first?
That works with me, Greg. I love the opening line. When the flames engulfed the home of the brave, the stampede toward the border was in vain. Faces palmed, faces paled as the wall they said would make them great could not be scaled. And I'm really struck by how those words parallel the scene set by the first lyrics in speculative fiction. A new iron curtain drawn across the 49th parallel, cut all diplomatic ties as we expel all American dignitaries. So it's like another speculative commentary on America's demise. It's collapsing in on itself. And it's worded just so darn well. I mean, the imagery and irony and also the absurdity of thinking something as divisive and archaic and isolating as a wall would make a modern superpower great.
Yeah. You know, I think it's so unbelievably cool that Propaganda put the Trump wall on track 1, and then they put his spoken clip in Zoocosis on track 12.
Mm-hmm.
It's like only fitting that the cult of personality driving the clown car society the last several years bookends the record.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Wall is track 1, and Build the Wall Chant is track 12. I mean, it's really nicely done. And I found a quote from the former president from June of 2015 that stated, "I would build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me. And I'll build them very expensively. I will build a great, great wall on our southern border." And, you know, at the completion of his first term, I was like looking this up last night. And, you know, because you better believe that we have a 50-50 chance of having a second term. So at the completion of the first term, there were 450 completed miles of wall. So the person promised 1,000 miles, built 450. But check this out. This is my favorite part. Only 47 of the 450 miles of wall were built where no structures existed before.
Right.
So
right.
He often claimed entirely new border wall was being built when only he was replacing existing fencing. So Obama leaves office with 654 miles of border fencing in existence, and Trump left office with 701 miles of border fencing in existence. So Trump literally built 47 miles of fencing. Mexico did not pay for it. The craziness cost U.S. taxpayers $15 billion, while Trump claimed it would cost $8 to $12 billion, and then Mexico would pay. He fleeced us. He claimed it would be made of concrete, 35 to 80 feet tall. I can't. 80 feet, depending on which rally he was talking to. So at some rallies, it was 80 feet. And I can only assume the border walls that like loom over Qalqilia in the Palestinian West Bank at the suggestion of his homie Bibi Netanyahu was his inspiration for that. If you haven't seen those border walls in Qalqilia in the West Bank, you should definitely Google search that because it is straight up absolutely insane. And the administration spent millions, money which almost none of us can even conceive of in our wildest dreams. $1 million, Keith. Conceive of $1 million, can you? It's crazy. Right. He spent millions building 8 prototypes that were all found to be vulnerable to breaches, and all 8 were torn down. Millions just to put up prototypes, just to tear them down. Ugh. And, I absolutely love how some residents along the border have fought hard to keep wall off their property and to prevent eminent domain seizures. Like, I read a story about one guy who had owned a piece of land since before the Roosevelt presidency, who fought so hard that there was a literal 1.2-mile gap of wall just on his property. And I was like, yeah, buddy.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. And, there's also the Tohono O'odham First Nation who owns land on both sides of the border, who agreed to some, limited cooperation in 2007 with George W. Bush, but had, burial grounds desecrated and human remains dug up in the process by the U.S. There's flooding repercussions for parts of the Rio Grande Valley if walls are there. And the flooding is always worse on the Mexico side. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
But, the Border Patrol, man, every year repairs over 4,000 fence holes in the fencing and in the walls. 4,000 holes per year are repaired by the Border Patrol. I could go on and on about this wall nonsense, but I loved how border agents were interviewed on the record saying they preferred the see-through fencing because they could more easily anticipate migrants and could more readily mobilize as opposed to a concrete wall you can't see through, So I had a good time looking up some wall stuff yesterday, and it's just such a gong show, man. It's so crazy. So I had a good time looking all that stuff up.
Yeah, Greg, I have a few other things, and it really goes without saying that a massive border wall is just so incredibly myopic. It's so short-sighted and a simple non-solution to an invented problem that ultimately does even more damage to, as you mentioned, private property and farmland, sacred First Nations land, national monuments, and protected wildlife sanctuaries. Constructing a border wall is willingly creating a man-made scar that cuts across some of the best stuff about our planet. So the racism and xenophobia aside, just the impracticality of it alone is staggering. There's a really great interactive multimedia resource from the USA Today simply called The Wall. And one thing that struck me as a Midwesterner is the vast emptiness of a region that encompasses much of the border between Mexico and the U.S., which explains why most border crossings take place at border checkpoints. So one thing I read, it says, in many places, viewing the border from above is the only expedient way to comprehend it. Much of the geography is imaginably remote. An automobile cannot stay with the line. By helicopter, we grasp just how much of the line is far removed from roads, also from cement plants, a supply of construction workers, and other provisions of wall building. So as a result of this harsh landscape, crossing the border in the remote deserts and mountains is all incredibly dangerous, and a border wall would only exacerbate that danger, according to experts. So from that same resource, The Wall, the remains of at least 2,832 migrants have been found in southern Arizona alone since 2001. And that's according to the Arizona OpenGIS Initiative for Deceased Migrants. Nearly 40%, over 1,000, Greg, have never been identified. And it goes on. The temperature in some days reaches 105 degrees. And you need more than a gallon of water per day, probably closer to 2 gallons a day, this one person says. And if you did the math on that, you're talking about carrying safely 15 gallons of water at 8 pounds a gallon, that would be like carrying 130 pounds of water, which you couldn't do. And of course, now that certain places making it illegal to leave behind water for people. So, I mean, Greg, I think it's easy to forget about the border wall and its construction with Trump out of office. And I think it's easy to make a fatal error of prescribing the racism, the xenophobia, the nativism, and the misuse of taxpayer funds and abuse of eminent domain just as a symptom of Trump. It's really just an updated version, a more absurd version of the Secure Fence Act of 2006, which was signed into law by George Bush, voted for by Barack Obama, that claimed it would help protect the American people and it would make our borders more secure and was an important step toward immigration reform. And political scientist Benjamin McLaughlin writes in an article, Border Fences and the Mexican Drug War, that over 1,000 migrant deaths were caused by that fence. So this is not new. It's not going away just because Trump is out of office. Biden promised to stop building the border wall, but we're 3 months into his administration, and the Department of Justice is still clearing land and seizing property. I mean, just from like the last 2 weeks from Politico, Trump completed more than 400 miles, like you said, of the wall along the southern border before he left the office, and in large part by evoking emergency declaration that allowed him to divert money from the Pentagon budget in 2019 and 2020 to pay for construction in 4 locations along the Mexican border. About 140 eminent domain cases, which allow the federal government to acquire private land for public use, remain active along the border in South Texas. And that represents a handful of families, including a family right now that is fighting the Biden administration to keep their land. So related to that, Greg, just this week, Biden announced that he would keep the historically low refugee cap set by Donald Trump, and only later changed the decision after pushback from refugee advocacy groups and Democrats in Congress, which is good to see the reversal and the movement on the issue, but that the administration wanted to keep the numbers that low in the first place is just incredibly alarming. And all of this is to say that Trump's border wall has tragically become not only a serious political issue, but a reality. And you mentioned that the borders that's already been built, well, 220 miles are under construction right now, and another 150 miles are in pre-construction. And I love the imagery in the lyrics of this renewed America First rhetoric being turned on its head as we've locked the door, right, in fear of an invisible threat, only to not be able to escape when the house catches on fire. It's just one of those perfectly framed and worded moments in a propaganda song. It honestly leaves me both like angry and in awe.
Absolutely. Well, and then I'm going into this next line here. When the free market fundamentalist steps on a roadside bomb outside Kandahar, bleeding to death, I swear to Ayn Rand, I'll ask if he needs an invisible hand.
Just as good. Oh my God, it's just as good.
I think this might be my favorite lyric my favorite single line on the whole record, dude.
Yeah.
Like, this is up there with me with Dad, Are We Gonna Die? Yes, son, both you and I, but maybe not today. But for a totally different reason.
Right.
Because this is about the cruelty of the society that we live in, while also, being not really able to escape out of it. Does that make sense? So we have this border wall that's like keeping us in. But like this line, okay. So just to knock out some vocab here real quick, free market fundamentalism is the belief in the ability of unregulated, laissez-faire policy to solve most economic and social problems, okay? So this is an important term here. Free market fundamentalist is often used in a pejorative way by critics of capitalism, free market capitalism, of which I would count myself a critic, obviously. I would say free market fundamentalism borders on religious faith, in ways because you are believing in something that in and of itself is based on a premise or a savior, if you will, that will never arrive. And any propaganda fan will know I'm using that last phrasing on purpose, haha. But, market fundamentalists tend to hold the belief that interference in the markets will decrease social well-being. Okay, so what are you thinking about this line here?
Yeah, so, I think of a particular quote regarding Adam Smith, who summarized the theory and the idea of the invisible hand in capitalism, like the belief that society as a whole benefits from individual interests. So he says, it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own self-interest. We address ourselves not to their humanity, but to their self-love, and never talk to them of our own necessities, but of their advantages. So in the process of trying to make money, people like the baker or the brewer, they sell things to others who benefit by buying bread or beer. Good businesses do well. They make more money and can do more than for the consumers and the community over time. Like, that's what that's saying. And this is just so self-serving and historically illiterate, and it ignores where wealth and how wealth is created in the first place. The Atlantic slave trade, or the displacement of indigenous peoples, the exploitation of workers like children, corporate influences on government policies in the first place that benefit those corporations. And of course, like the fact that there's funding from governments that bolster the economy, like the American system following the War of 1812 that funded roads and canals and other internal improvements that allowed businesses to grow in the first place. Or, the combination of public work projects and financial reforms and regulations that made up the New Deal enacted by FDR in the 30s, or the $2 trillion infrastructure bill recently released by the Biden administration. So I think this line really highlights the danger of viewing the world in very singular, simple terms. Wherever business and investment spread, development and progress will follow. Well, that ignores the complex centuries-long histories of destabilization of regions. Capitalism doesn't exist in a vacuum, and while I don't hear the band celebrating the death of this possibly real or hypothetical globetrotting capitalist, maybe there's a little bit of like cosmic justice in those lyrics, kind of like the opening line, as the invisible hand that has done more to hold down and oppress whole populations in research-rich points on the map, it fails to also save the person from an IED, something that's become commonplace in the places that America claims to liberate and democratize and modernize. I mean, for a shorter response, Greg, I guess I just think like they subsidize your nightclubs and they subsidize your malls, and that the free market is a myth.
Yeah. And if you think about now, too, we know that income inequality has risen sharply over the last 40 years. And how can this be? Yeah. In 1979, the top 1% of the population earned 9% of all income in the United States. And by 2016, they were earning 16% of all income in the United States. And what about now? There are currently 2,365 billionaires on Earth. And during the first year of the COVID pandemic, those freaking billionaires increased their own fortunes by 54%, a $4 trillion boost among 2,365 human beings. $4 trillion. And their combined wealth among those 2,365 went from $8.04 trillion to $12.39 trillion. And this time last year, Jeff Bezos was worth $113 billion, and now he's worth $178 billion in a single year. That's how much his value went up. And how ordinary American people, regardless of political ideology, cannot be in favor of drastically increasing the taxation on folks like this is truly beyond me.
Right.
Yeah. And another thing about this song. So Kandahar is name dropped in this song. Kandahar is the second largest city in Afghanistan with a population of 614,000. So if anybody out there didn't know where Kandahar is, now you do. But I love the depiction of Ayn Rand as like a godlike figure in this lyric.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'll pray to Ayn Rand. You know, pray to.
Yeah, your
It's really a
religion
striking
observation
visual.
is sharp. Your religion observation is super sharp, Greg.
Yeah, and the veneration of certain people because of something like, a border wall, or the veneration of them because they wrote a couple books. Ayn Rand has sold 30 million books. Ayn Rand argues that capitalism is a necessary good and is the only social system in which humans can survive, prosper, and enjoy their lives. So, Rand says that there are 3 essentials for human society. We have to, 1, think, 2, we have to produce, and 3, we have to deal with others on mutually beneficial terms. So Rand says that there's no reason on earth why individuals should not seek to make the most of their own life without victimizing others or becoming the victims themselves. But that is just not how humanity is. Dude, life is so much more complex than that. Truck drivers sustain nerve damage and joint damage from years in their trucks. Construction workers break their backs until they can't pull themselves out of bed. People are born with varying ability levels across any number of complexities with the human body. And it's like, yeah, we had this perfect vision where human beings are completely healthy and can completely do everything that any able-bodied person can do. And it also takes into consideration that human beings won't be insanely greedy and will actually be able to come to these kinds of situations for most people. And it leaves out so much complexity that it just really makes me sad,
Yeah, it's just like the border wall.
Exactly. So, should we go into not all cops? I've got some thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so you say not all cops, you say not all men. Yeah, you insisted it's only 99%. There's nothing new for you to learn. Okay, sit back, relax, and watch it all burn. So, Greg, in my classroom last week, addressing the trial of Derek Chauvin following the murder of George Floyd, which was interrupted by the murder of Dante Wright, which was interrupted by the body cam footage of the murder of Adam Toledo, I explained to my students that when I see a video of a racist, abusive teacher doing harm in the classroom, like, my response is not all teachers. My response is to hold those individuals accountable with the wave after wave of accusations and stories and testimonies of survivors of sexual violence. Defensiveness and whataboutisms are cowardly, and they get in the way of opportunities of growth, reflection, healing, progress, and progress for people who are more likely to experience sexual violence or become police violence statistics far more likely than me or you, Greg.
Yeah. And we're recording this just at the end of the trial of the murderer who murdered George Floyd. I actually just got a notification on my phone here that says jury deliberations in the Derek Chauvin murder trial are beginning literally 7 minutes ago here on the notifications. And, that Adam Toledo footage, I didn't watch it because I don't want to watch a 13-year-old die, man. And, not to mention the absolutely endless list of civilian deaths at the hands of police. So, each year we watch these deaths continue to occur, and each year I wonder, why isn't there a critical mass of cops condemning every one of these events, which are entirely preventable and only serve to make cops look terrible? Does that make sense, dude?
Yeah, that would undercut, and it would question their authority and their ability to exude force and violence whenever and wherever they want. I think that's the reason.
Yeah, it's like it makes them look untrustworthy, quick to flagrant violence that is fatal, and only makes the jobs of police harder. Like, that's what these events do. They make the jobs of police harder. So for the life of me, I've never been able to understand why police were allowing their jobs, to just allow their reputations to be trampled year after year in defense of what? Death? Omerta? A code of silence?
Yeah.
So I was like, someone out there must be speaking out against this. There must be police out there saying this is horrendous and speaking out against this. So I went looking for it. And because this omerta, this code of silence, is a uniquely cop-like thing in professions. Like you just mentioned that we teachers want bad teachers out of the classroom. Doctors don't support bad doctors, not that I can tell at least. And so why can't cops critique cops? So people say not all cops are bad, that there are good cops, but if a colleague commits an atrocious crime, such as pulling someone over because of an air freshener, and then taking their life, shouldn't every cop be standing up against that and calling for that person who is a murderer to be in prison? Like, why aren't cops calling for Chauvin to be in prison forever? Why are cops sending cash donations to that murderer Kyle Rittenhouse, telling him he did nothing wrong?
Yeah.
Like, this culture is poison. So I went looking, and I found a post from the NAACP on Instagram where a guy who self-describes himself as a good cop demonstrates the weight difference and the dominant, non-dominant positioning of guns and tasers. And the cop says, this is a direct quote, "I don't understand how we can mistake a taser for a gun or a gun for a taser. If you're in the heat of the moment and you do something like that, you shouldn't be doing this job because no one hates a bad cop more than a good cop. I'm not going to put my life on the line to fix your stupidity and deal with restoring the peace and the public I serve just because of your stupid actions. 99% of our job is communication. You don't have to be quick to pull out a gun or a taser and think someone's a threat. Not everyone's a threat." And I was like, okay, this guy is going to get dragged for this, which is such a sad impulse to have. Like, my next thought is, why isn't he calling for the arrest and prosecution of cops who make these flagrant, tragic mistakes? Like, even though he's, critiquing it and condemning it, he's not saying, if you kill somebody unjustifiably, you deserve to be in prison forever. He doesn't say that in his statement. So, I'm glad to see cops expressing grief and all of that because it keeps happening. 3 people per day have died in police encounters since the Derek Chauvin trial began. Per day. 3 people per day have died in police encounters during the Derek Chauvin trial, which was only 10 miles away from where Daunte Wright was killed. So, that is at least 64 people who have died in encounters with cops in just the past few weeks here in April of 2021. Those are people's lives, man. You get one life. And Daunte Wright got pulled over for an air freshener hanging in his window and expired tags. And his existence was taken from him. I can't even fathom this. It makes no sense to me. He was destroyed from the face of the earth. And literally anyone except cops go to prison for life for doing what happened to Daunte Wright, for doing what happened to George Floyd. You go to prison forever. That's what we do in the United States. We put people in prison. And if I did that to Daunte Wright, I would be in prison forever. Well, maybe I wouldn't because I'm white and Daunte Wright was black, But extinguishing a human life after pulling them over for having a dangling air freshener is so disgusting. It keeps happening. Our nation keeps letting it happen. Clown, idiot, dingbat society, man. Oh my gosh. Then we got this this not all men thing.
Right.
So do you have any other thoughts on not all cops before I then eviscerate not all men? Because I'm going to go there.
Good. No, good. I think you made some really important points. There's one thing to post something on social media, whether that person is a cop or it's me, and it's another to testify. And it's heartening to see that the police chief testified against Derek Chauvin and that other officers testified against that. And I don't know if that means the scales will tip, given the money and the funding and the support that you mentioned sent to Rittenhouse, the murderer who, killed people in Wisconsin. I don't think if this will actually lead to change, right? If it will actually lead to any change, I don't know, but at least that's a start.
Yeah, we're back in the thick of murdering in the USA right now. We are having mass shootings left and right. We are having police violence left and right. We are back, baby. So whenever Joe Biden said America is back, oh, you better believe it. We are back.
Right.
We are back. We are back with our death.
Indianapolis, and then Austin, and then what else was there? There are 2 more in the last 2 days that I can't keep track of.
I can't either. And there was another one. I saw the Austin one. I saw the FedEx facility. And then there was one more that popped up this morning. I was like, wait, I missed that one entirely.
Yeah.
Like, that's how many there are, where I'm like, oh,
Right.
another mass shooting. And, like, it was like 24 hours later, and I was like, oh, I didn't hear about this one. Like, that's how numb and disgusting this society is. But, like, then we've got this not all men thing, right? I love that hashtag not all men is in this lyric. It is so funny. Because, like, this is what men do, right?
Right.
We've always done it.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a conversation that has nothing to do with us personally,
Yep.
men, we tend to go in, interject where we weren't even invited, and make it about ourselves. So, like, when Chris gives interviews lately, he always says how tired he is of hearing himself, which is a kind of a 180 from the propaganda of the 90s that we all came to know and love.
Sure.
But this is what men do. So first, I realize and I 100% acknowledge that we are two dudes on a podcast, the most tired of tired cliches at this point.
Yeah, my students asked why I had my microphone in my classroom because I'm recording in my class, and they're like, "Wait, you have a podcast?" I'm like, "I'm a middle-aged white guy. Of course I have a podcast."
Yeah, it's a tired cliche at this point, and here we are doing it. We're leaning into it. So, owned 100%. But anyway, so I found a fantastic Medium article about this issue called "Why Men Should Stop Saying hashtag Not All Men Immediately." And here's an example when women talk about something. So, woman, I've been catcalled in the street, groped in clubs, assaulted on the tube, and raped by my boyfriend. And here's a typical man response that will definitely show up in that Twitter thread. Actually, I think it's important to make clear that not all men are like this. Most men would never behave in such a terrible way. I sure wouldn't. Isn't it sexist to tar all men with that same brush? And I loved this example because nobody is saying that particular man. And it's pretty much always the men who make it about all men.
Right.
So an individual man will take it entirely personally. And even if they don't recognize themselves in that behavior, like for a long time now, they've tended to take it extremely personally when a woman says that she was the victim of violence by another man. And then that new man who has nothing to do with it will pop in and say, actually, hashtag not all men. So all it does is seek to exhaust the very people who are trying to move society in a better direction. If someone is the victim of something and they say it, their goal is to move society forward so that their experiences will be less likely to happen to, say, their own daughter in the next generation. But men seem to be so touchy about critique toward men, and I just cannot understand why that is. Like, we need to be comfortable discussing misogyny, but if every dude needs to be absolved before any woman can just say, this happened to me, we're going to be stuck in this cycle of atrocious sexual assault for far too long. And if you don't recognize yourself in a conversation you see online about sexual assault, awesome. You have succeeded at being respectful and, not sexually assaulting somebody. And that's awesome. And that conversation is not about you. So don't try to make it about you. Just read it, and maybe you don't comment on it. Maybe you don't need to be a part of literally every conversation. And I say that as a rampant Twitter user myself. So I realize like the hypocrisies here. But just think about that. It's not about you if a woman is expressing something that happened to her on the internet. So that's I'll leave it there.
Yeah, preach, Greg.
Thanks, buddy. Do you have any more thoughts on hashtag not all men? Because I just
keep
love
going.
that Chris Hanna put it in.
Yeah,
all
keep
right,
going.
Cool. So
what else?
You insist it's only 99%. There's nothing new for you to learn. Okay, sit back, relax, and watch it all burn. So it's crystal clear the top 1% is dramatically running away from the other 99%. The idea of climbing the social ladder in the U.S. is almost a form of civil religion, a mythos that we tell ourselves in the U.S., but research pre-pandemic demonstrates Americans enjoy less economic mobility than those of Canada and much of Western Europe. So even Paul Ryan and Rick Santorum acknowledge that it's harder to climb the social ladder in the U.S. than it is in other, similarly developed countries. And if you're born into poverty, you almost always stay there. And the premiums people pay for college education here prevents them from climbing very high because repaying loans and housing and cars and raising kids makes it nearly impossible to actually live beyond paycheck to paycheck. So 42% of American men raised in the bottom stay in the bottom, compared to 25% staying there in Denmark, 30% staying there in Britain. Mobility is lagging in this country. So we lag behind in rates of economic mobility. And 8% of American men raised in the bottom rise the top 5%, compared to 12% of Brits who are raised in the bottom and rise to the top 5%, and 14% of Danes who are raised in the bottom and rise to the top 5%. So we just lag behind. You know what I mean? So that's something that I was finding. Did you find anything about 99%?
No, I think that last part, like, I wasn't. I mean, I associated obviously with Occupy Wall Street, but I wasn't necessarily clear on how it fit in the wording. So that was the connotation or the connection I made, but wasn't sure how it worked with everything else. But I really think that's a great description, Greg.
Nice. So moving on, we've got the colossal waste of energy, talent upon the talented, freedom upon the free, this whole damn beautiful life wasted on you and me.
Yeah, Greg, this is a line I really like, but I'm sure here, I don't have a firm grasp on its meaning.
Yeah,
And I'm really interested to hear what you have to say.
All right, well, this is a tough one, and as I said earlier, I love the lyrics in this song, but this particular lyric, the way that Chris sings it, it's almost like hip-hop lyrical delivery to me. And this lyric is like a companion lyric to every single precious breath you've ever wasted from Without Love. So I see this one as connecting to Without Love a little bit. But like the colossal waste of energy, talent upon the talented, freedom upon the free, this whole damn beautiful life wasted on you and me. And the way that Chris delivers it, I'm just like, man, I am just jamming. I'm grooving on this lyric. It is so well delivered. I almost feel like, I can almost feel Chris's, veneration for Public Enemy coming out in the way that he sings this one. But like the absolutely gargantuan amount of our lives we spend lost in thought, frittering away, wasting, is just absolutely tragic and devastating if you think about the preciousness and specialness of life. And we talked about this a lot in our status update episode when we talked about social media a lot. But like the most useful thing I did today was run 6 miles. And then I did a whole lot of sitting on the couch. And currently my life is not really roses and puppies, though I'm trying to be pretty gentle on myself right now, so I'm forgiving myself for spending a lot of time on the couch. But, like, the freedom upon the free line is so darkly humorous because we tell ourselves how free we are. But we're pretty far from free, We're beholden to all of our monthly bills, beholden to interest rates that are foisted upon us beyond our control with so-called rises and falls in the market. We get priced out of homes in our hometowns because we went to college and earned similar wages to people in the 80s, when a particular house that now costs $400,000 costs $100,000 brand new, built from the ground up. Then we carry around little surveillance tracking devices in our pockets with Find My features, so you can be found anywhere, anytime, by anyone. We get Amazon Echoes in our houses that people outside the house can dial into as drop-in calls to hear what's actually going on inside the house. We line our houses with cameras that we track with apps. We line our streets with CCTV, and we call ourselves free. So if you're lining your home with Ring camera doorbells and cameras and Echoes and Alexas, you're living in your own personally curated surveillance state. Like, you're on Big Brother without being famous. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds pretty much it's like the opposite of being free to me. Yeah. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that line. I just love that line. So it's pretty cool to me the way that there's a couple of different ideas thrown in there. But yeah, man, we waste a lot of time and we tell ourselves how free we are, but we ain't so free. And we do it to ourselves in a lot of ways. It's so voluntary, Yeah,
it seemed like that beautiful, this whole damn beautiful life wasted on you and me. Like, who else, what better person could have existed? But here I am scrolling through Twitter, watching Conan the Barbarian for the 300th time, not doing anything
Yep.
productive for others, or even myself, even myself, not doing anything productive. Who instead could have been in my place doing things better? Yeah, it's wasted on that. Yeah. Well, that kind of then maybe takes us to the next part, Greg. God, are you there?
Oh,
It's me in the denim jacket. Are you receiving my prayers through the noise and cosmic static? God, are you there? Can you confirm I'm on the right goddamn planet? And this is so great. And at first, I think it could just be written off just as being funny or whimsical, but there's so much disillusion and vulnerability and I think desperation in the words. And Greg, I want to go back to that Heavy Blog is Heavy review, because that writer just, again, nailed this part. It says here, you get the sense he's not just speaking for himself, but millions of people who find themselves living on a planet that has suddenly, or not, depending upon any number of factors of your personal makeup, revealed itself to be even more hostile to them than previously imagined. And just the disillusionment of getting older and realizing that things are actually way worse than we thought, unlike Steven Pinker and other Whig historians and the Neil deGrasse Tysons who want to say, like, well, actually, you're more likely to die, in a boat, whatever ridiculous example, like lacking empathy for the Mobius strip of tragedy that seems to define living in the United States. Those looking at those like absurd statistical changes over time doesn't do anything to, a grieving mother who had just lost her 7th grader who shot in the chest by a police officer. So, just getting older and not being able to cope with these things that we realize are worse. And it kind of reminds me of the whole the only thing I know is I know nothing. Like, I feel like I know things are dark, but I kind of just keep thinking realizing they're actually way worse than I thought before. And I just keep sliding that scale down and down until I don't know where it goes from here.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me of something that you said the other day. I believe the quote was, "Age flattens man."
Oh, yeah. Age will flatten a man. That's from No Country for Old Men.
Oh, man. And, that's me every day. Like, I wake up each morning knowing I have to find the good. I have to commit myself to finding good and beauty. Right. I know I need to get work done. I need to go running. I need to talk to my kiddo. I need to eat a decent meal. But I also know that interspersed within that will be familial strife, horrendous news, should I choose to stay informed and look at it.
Yeah. The
endless monotony of COVID living. And I think, again, this is the level of thinking within my 4 walls. And then I look outside my 4 walls after okay, I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm going to look outside now, right? And it's just catastrophe the world over. Like, I just emerged from a 2-day depression after being reminded of the imminent collapse of our oceans from watching that film Seaspiracy. And I realized how tiny, how microscopic my problems actually are compared to our ailing planet and our species' parasitic role and devastation, leading to the massive species extinction happening before our very eyes. And I'm like, God, are you there?
Yeah.
And so that lyric, man, it's a powerful moment across the entire Propaganda discography. I always talk about my favorite moments. God, are you there? Can you confirm I'm on the right goddamn planet? Dude, it's way up there for me in favorite moments. Me. God, are you there? It's me in the denim jacket. Are you receiving my prayers through the noise and cosmic static? God, are you there? Can you confirm I'm on the right goddamn planet? The rapture came. So anyway,
it doesn't feel like this planet was made for us sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like a stranger here so much because like I've said on the show many times, like I have a vision for the future that I would like for human beings to have. And like every single day, like I read the things looking for these hopeful benchmarks of like what I want to see the world become. And like I just feel like I'm not finding it. And all I find is like rage reporting. And I'm like, oh. So anyway, we have the next line, which more religion. The day the rapture came, a forgettable event. The clouds, they opened up and not a single person went. When I picture this vision of the rapture, I picture all the poor people in the world who have given to their spiritual communities an incredible amount of money to support astronomical wealth within religion in the hopes of being right about a very specific and narrow version of what could be, quote, the end of the world, right? And how much of that money could be used like doing actual good things, like drilling water wells, installing renewable solar and wind the world over, wiping out medical debt for people in the U.S. who are assaulted by bill collectors after daring to seek medical treatment, or how much investment could be going to saving the oceans. I'm on a big ocean kick on this episode, but like,
I don't know if I can watch a documentary after your description.
Dude, just the trawling sections alone about the destruction of the ocean floor just sent me into a two day tailspin. Had a few too many Bud Light seltzers out on that one. Yeah. But like I tell you what, man, if our ecological systems on the planet collapse totally, a rapture of sorts will occur, and it will be as ugly as anything you can possibly imagine. So. That's a thought on that. Do you have any thoughts on the rapture line in the song?
Yeah, I just think it's incredibly vivid and sharp. It's funny, it's sad, it's ironic, and it really sets the pace, I think, for the album after this, for the rest of the record. And so I think back to the image of the Jetstar roller coaster that's partially submerged in the ocean just off the shore of Seaside Heights in New Jersey. That doom seems imminent, and it's a stark warning, that photograph, that our way of life is teetering on disaster, warfare, or environmental collapse, or some combination of the two, but we continue to ignore it. And not only are we so wrapped up in ourselves that we're brushing off those warning signs, it seems like even if some religious end of the world were to come, the second coming of Christ or some other rapture, we wouldn't even notice because we'd be so busy wrapped up in ourselves or entertaining ourselves. We wouldn't hear the music hearkening us to heaven for something better over our own stomping and yelling, which is great given the last line, that this self-realization that perhaps also maybe self-deprecating, the stomp part. It feels like Propaganda is saying, at this point in their lives and their careers, maybe they're more rock and less talk. And thinking about this band's work so much this past year, Greg, I come to these realizations and ideas about themes within and across their discography, whether they're intentional or if it's just interpreted. And one is just the feel-good rock and roll attitude of this song. I think Failed Imagineer and Tartuffe fit with that as well. And the band is willing to kind of let their guard down, some at least, while still writing songs of substance, and embrace the fact that they may just be making music that is the soundtrack for the end, rather than music that can actually prevent it.
Yeah, in this last line, the chromatic whistle of a carousel calliope stomped the citizens of our own clown idiot dingbat society. It's so good. I actually had to look up what a carousel calliope was, and it's so painfully obvious what it is, and I'm almost too embarrassed to even say that I didn't know what it was without looking it up. But it's the music carousels play as they go round and round, and it's a hilarious analogy.
Yeah.
Because every single year, human beings get crushed under the stampeding stupidity of society, and as tragedy occurs, and you flip on any television channel, it feels like we're on a merry-go-round right now of police murdering people, of coronavirus and COVID-19 deaths and inaccessibility to vaccines in various countries around the world. You also see things like mass shootings, and you also see things like $113 billion person all of a sudden worth $178 billion. So, like, this is our carousel calliope. This is our music that we listen to as our carousel goes round and round year after year. Rich get richer. Cop kills black kid. People die of disease that is preventable. And you know what I mean? And mass shooting happens. Like, that's our carousel calliope. And it is stomping us into a post-traumatic stress worldwide disorder. But maybe it's mostly an American disorder with a few of those examples that I list. But that's our calliope, man. That's our carousel song. Those things that I listed.
That's a great description, Greg.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about some music here real quick? I've got something special lined up for this episode. You want to hear about it?
Yeah.
So when we started this show, we got tons and tons of notes from people who, were super stoked about what we were doing. We made tons of fantastic friends on Twitter, and I got an email ages ago, and I got to know a guy on Twitter who goes by the musical stage name of Bossman. And he has been going back and forth with us on Twitter since, like, the day we launched this podcast, right? And he's a Georgia-based musician. He hosts a podcast called Breadsheet. And out of nowhere one day, he sends me a link to an acoustic cover that he did of this song, Victory Lap. And it's really, really awesome. So a while back, I asked him if we could include the acoustic cover of Victory Lap in the episode its entirety, and he said yes. And I also asked him, since he's got a podcast and, Cheska was on earlier, I was like, hey, we should just, talk about this cover that you did briefly, and we could talk about your adaptation process of how you went about, doing the cover and the technical aspects, your appreciation of this song. So we have an acoustic cover of Victory Lap that I'm going to play in just a second. And then after that, Haas and I are going to chat about his adaptation of the song for about 18 minutes. So we'll be back in around 20 minutes to discuss a little bit of the musical insights that we have around Victory Lap. So please enjoy the cover of Victory Lap by Haas Bossman and my brief conversation with him. So thanks, Haas, for coming on. And we'll be back in just a bit.
When the flames engulf the home of the brave, the stampede to war, the border was in vain. Faces palm, faces pale, as the wall they said would make them great could not be scaled. When the free market fundamentalist steps on the roadside bomb outside Kandahar bleeding to death, I swear to it ran. I'll ask if he needs an invisible hand. Say not all cops, say not all men. Yeah, you insist it's only 99%. There's nothing new for you to learn. Okay, sit back, relax, and watch it all burn. Colossal waste of energy, talent upon the talented, freedom upon the free. This whole damn beautiful life wasted on you and me. God, are you there? It's me in the denim jacket. Are you receiving my prayers through the noise and cosmic static? God, are you there? Can you confirm I'm on the right goddamn planet? the chromatic whistle of a carousel calliope. Stomp the citizens of our clown idiot dingbat society.
Hoss Bossman, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda.
Hello.
It is great to have you here, Hoss. Can you just introduce yourself a little bit for the audience so they know who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge propaganda and punk rock, especially political punk rock fan. I guess it's a stage name you'd call it. My fake internet name, as I sometimes say, is Hoss Bossman. And I guess, the stage name, since I do like work in education as y'all do, I kind of try to keep the world separate. But as you probably know, that's kind of impossible.
Yeah. But you know what? Like your stage name, whenever we started interacting on Twitter and email months and months ago, you stood out to us right away. Like Keith and I were always like, oh yeah, Hoss Bossman. You know what I mean? Like whenever we were like talking about all the fun Twitter and Instagram interactions, like your name came up for us so many times when we were starting the show. So we've loved interacting with you for the last several months, and we're stoked that you were interested in doing the show. You know, it's great to hang out and talk to fans and nerd out for a while, you know?
Awesome. Yeah. Same here. I started doing my podcast. It's called Breadsheet. And I started doing that around the same time y'all started the Propaganda podcast.
Yeah.
And mine is I'll do like long form interviews with people and musicians, artists, and like political activists. I try to kind of steer it toward talking about leftist politics, but also try to get some other stuff in there, just kind of talking about art and creative process and stuff like that. I'm a musician, have been for a very long time, and I played in punk bands back in the day when I was in high school, and throughout college had a band called the K-Max that we released a few albums. It's kind of I always call it country punk, sort
nice.
of like the cow punk, along similar lines as like old 97s and that sort of thing.
Heck yeah.
But maybe a little bit more in the punk direction than the country direction than they are, but still with those influences in there.
Yeah, like Rhett Miller meets reinventing Axl Rose, maybe.
Oh, well, haven't heard that one, but that's a pretty, I will take that as a compliment for sure.
Oh, I mean, there's one for sure. Nice. Well, yeah. So the reason, so like I said earlier, we've been interacting on Twitter and Instagram for a long, long time now, and you're a massive propaganda fan as well. And I'm curious, just like, tell me a little bit about your fandom of the band, like maybe like your favorite album and like how you got into the band in general. What's your story there?
Sure. Yeah. My friend Max and I, who we've been, lifelong musical partners, we were, really into Bad Religion, NoFX, Propaganda, like a lot of the bands that kind of blew up in that Fat Records, Epitaph, 90s punk blow up. We were always on those like compilations and stuff. That's how I found like most of the new bands I found back in the day. And I still listen to all that music probably more than any other genre to this day. I'm 32 now, so yeah.
Yeah, same here.
First Propaganda album, as with most people, or a lot of people probably, was, How to Clean Everything. Spun that like over and over and over again and wore that record out. And also the next two albums, Let's Talk More Rock and Tomorrow's Empire, or Today's Empire is Tomorrow's Ashes. Which, classic albums. And really, I kind of fell off with Propaganda for a little bit. Still would always listen to those three albums, but didn't keep up with their new stuff for a while. And whenever I would hear it, I would kind of be like, I wasn't really as into metal. And they were taking that more of a metal turn. And it would kind of be like, I guess this, they've kind of evolved beyond my tastes or something. And it really took a while for me to grow into being like a sophisticated enough appreciator of music to really like get back into them and really appreciate more of a wide like variety of music in general. But and Victory Lap, actually, that was kind of like when I rediscovered Propagandhi as like, holy shit, I've been missing out on this, which was kind of a cool thing. It's like when you find out somebody hasn't ever seen like a, you know, Star Wars movie or something like that. It's like, oh, the worlds that are about to open up to you.
Nice. So that's an interesting story about reconnecting with Victory Lap, because as we've talked about on the show a little bit, I kind of see Victory Lap almost as like if a bunch of dads had written Less Talk More Rock. Do you know what I mean? Like there's like a sort of hearkening back to a sound that is slightly more melodic, slightly less thrashy, slightly less metal, and back to that 90s sound sort of, while also honoring all of those like the sounds that were captured on Potemkin, Supporting Cast, Failed States. But it kind of like throws back to that 90s sound a tad more. Do you think that's why it kind of grabbed you back in?
I think I think that is accurate. Like the song Victory Lap, it has a little bit more of the melodic, I guess the more traditional structure wise, than like, you know, some of the, especially the songs that the bass player writes and stuff that tend to be more that like thrash metal and a little bit more like complex. And like I said, you know, like metal is just a more musically involved, and I feel like, you know, you really kind of have to you have to have like, you know, a little bit more sophisticated taste to really appreciate what's going on there. And I think that, you know, that was what like, but it did kind of help ease me back in. I think when I got I found Victor, I was like, man, I wonder what Propagandhi's been up to. And it was 2017, like right after it had been released.
Nice.
And just that opening riff is so badass, and I was like, holy shit, I've been missing out on this whole like world of music. And then for the next, you know, for the past 3 years, like those 4 most recent albums, am I counting that right? Or I guess 3 most recent albums have been in Potemkin, Supporting Cast, and 4 Failed States, and Victory Lap have been in just constant rotation. And I mean, I just like am an evangelist of Propagandhi these days, and not just like musically, more like, you know, being so into Bad Religion and NoFX and bands like that. You know, I feel like it's not that I've like outgrown NoFX or something like that. It's just that like the lyrics and the music, I appreciate like a little bit more innovation these days. And I think Propagandhi like brings more of that than like any of those bands that I grew up with. And you know, especially though the political lyrics, you know, I've always been a pretty like politically aware person. And like I probably would have called myself like a leftist since I was like maybe 12 or 13 years old, and it was mostly music that got me into politics, this, you know, genre of music, and Propagandhi was a huge band for that. And something about, and I've always been, you know, front man and like main songwriter in the bands that I've been in over the years. And as a lyricist, Chris Hanna is just so amazing at capturing this, like talking about politics in a way that, and on my podcast, I like to talk about like the relationship between art and politics. And he is so good at this thing that like a lot of political artists can kind of be a little bit too prosaic and a little too on the nose, I guess. And sometimes the music doesn't age that well. He is so good at like connecting the political with the personal and making it very, very poetic, while at the same time sort of like speaking to these specific issues. And that's something that I think, you know, Bad Religion's probably like my favorite band of all time. I think that's something that they're really great at as well. And so to this day, I would say like their Propagandhi moved up like top 3 favorite bands is, you know, Bad Religion, Propagandhi, and probably, you know, I guess that third slot rotates. Belongs in there, but
nice. Well, you have a great cover of Victory Lap that you worked on this past summer, and which listeners of this episode will be hearing in the episode. But how did you decide to spend, because, you know, covering a song written by Propaganda is not like a necessarily easy task. Like you have to put a lot of hours and work into it, into, recording and preparing it and practicing and getting it right. And then, doing a mix obviously of it. But how did you decide, like, okay, I'm going to commit this amount of hours to making this happen? Why did you think about that?
Victory Lap, like I said, that was like what kind of that song, opens up the album, sort of turned me back on to Propaganda, got me appreciating them again. And and that opening riff is so awesome. And I think I probably just picked up my guitar and was like, I wonder, just learn that riff and just mess around with it. And that's, usually how learning a song goes, is like just sort of poking around, and then like it snowballs or doesn't if it like gets too difficult or something. But with that song, I think that song is in, at least that riff is like in drop C, if I'm remembering correctly. Like when I first started trying to learn it, I was like, oh, I know Propaganda, they down tune their guitars a half step. So, get a little bit more of a heavy sound. So, they play in like, I guess E flat standard most of the time. But to play in drop C, they would actually have to tune down another half step. So I don't know if like specifically for that recording they did that, but that's neither here nor there. But so I started learning that riff, and then it just sort of like, I started wondering, I bet you can kind of do like a little folk rhythm to this song and not sacrifice too much of the original feel. And I probably simplified some of the chords a little bit because, like every little thing, especially, Chris Hanna, I know I've heard him talk about how like he doesn't know scales, and he just sort of like puts in the work to just like come up with everything like note by note.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes his music very unique and very complex.
Yeah.
And it can make it very difficult to learn. So there's probably like some stuff that I'm missing in there, but so it was mainly just that opening riff, how badass that is, and just kind of wanting to mess around with that. And then also the opening lyrics to that song, the opening lines are so awesome. And I think it really just has that, it's such a poetic image about the when the flames engulfed the home of the brave. The stampede toward the border was in vain. Palm faces paled as the wall they said would make them great could not be scaled. Just like such this poetic image about like us, Americans, like dooming ourselves with our bigotry like that. And so, that was, and, I guess because that song turned me on to Propaganda again. And then also I just kind of works with my style of playing. And I actually had to drop it down a step or two from how they play it because my voice couldn't quite hit the notes the way that he does. So maybe I shouldn't admit that, but yeah, that's the skinny on my relationship with that song.
I'm curious about the recording process of how you went through it. Like how many guitar tracks are on this thing? Like, did you double up vocals? What were some of the, the nuts and bolts behind putting it together?
It's mostly just, I think there are 3 acoustic guitar tracks on it to try and get it sounding kind of thick of just the rhythm tracks. And so I like with guitars, I love hard pan. I'm addicted to the sound of like hard panned guitars, especially like distorted, electric guitars. But when it comes to that song, the acoustic, I felt like it just kind of gave it a little bit more of a wall of sound with hard panning those. And so I think there's one in the center and then one on each side. Hard panned, and then just that one little riff which I play up a little bit higher than they do is the additional track. And I think those are all the music tracks, and then the vocals. I think it took me many takes to get those vocals a way that I like them. And there are actually like 3 or 4 other versions of that song floating around that have different guitar. Like I kept just kind of like adding to it, and sort of the ship of Theseus, like replacing bit by bit in that song to where it's like completely different tracks now. But then I think there's a version that's like, got different guitar recordings and different vocal recordings and stuff on it.
Awesome. I was listening to it, and I was like reading some of the comments that people had given to it, and I was like, wow, people really like this cover. So like, if you have actually heard it, if you've come across this one, like, it's great. And somebody was like, wow, I like this one a lot more than the original even. And you're like, well, that is overly generous and everything. So you're a very diplomatic and very kind person, but this is such a really, really great job. And have you gotten any other feedback that stands out to you on this one?
Well, actually, the most surreal, and I very much appreciate that. Yeah, the surreal and amazing piece of feedback I got, which was from Chris Hanna himself.
Nice.
Like I tagged him in a tweet or something. I think y'all were involved in that tweet thread as well.
Yeah, we might have been.
And I just got, it was just a very simple response, like, haha, nice, cheers, man, something like that.
Sweet.
But it's just like that, made me have an out of body experience, because just being a songwriter and an artist, and like just having somebody who I've admired for my whole life as a musician just give me just a little comment like that was meant a whole lot to me. And he just seems like such a sweet dude, and I really, really appreciated that piece of feedback the most.
Awesome. Well, Haas, I am super pumped that you put this cover together, that you were willing to let us include it in the episode for everybody who downloads the podcast to hear. Definitely tell everybody where they can find more of your music, and remind everybody of your podcast again. So tell everybody where to find you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me again. And my podcast is called Breadsheet. And it's on all like the major podcasting apps. Like I said, it's kind of a political thing. I make original music for that show. So like, there's just basically my goal was like, I want to just have it be complete chaos. And so there's like a theme song for every little segment that I do. And I just keep adding. And for each guest that I have come on the show, I make an original theme song for them using like some clips of them speaking and stuff like that. Oh my God,
that's so sweet.
So it's really been an awesome excuse for me to just like because I just love making music. And especially that, I started this stage name of Haas Bossman and doing this YouTube channel because I have all these like minute-long little style parodies and stuff that I've made over the years. And they were just kind of like sitting in a folder on my computer. And so that's my YouTube channel is Haas Bossman. And lately I've also been making like video essays and putting like interview clips from the podcast up for like a visual side of it whenever we have 10 to 20 minute like little convos about one sustained topic. And so yeah, Haas Bossman YouTube channel. And then I've got a lot of other music stuff, but my website is www.haas.fun.
Nice.
Love that web address so much. So yeah, Haas.fun. You can find all the stuff like my serious music was my band, the K-Max, which, we've been on hiatus for a few years now. And so now I do kind of more of the silly stuff, but I also stream on Twitch. Like I'll, pick up the guitar and play some Billy Bragg, Propaganda, something like that. Started doing that more recently. So I'm Haas_Bossman on like Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter. So you can find me all of those places just at Haas.fun though.
What a pleasure to chat with you today, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a real treat.
Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to hear it.
Wasted on you and me. God, are you there? It's me in the denim jacket.
All right, so that was Haas Bossman covering Victory Lap and having a brief conversation with me. So what's up, Haas? Thank you so much for doing that. So, Keith, I've been thinking about the sonic experience of listening to Propaganda.
Right.
Okay? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The over the course of all of their recorded material, including the goofy double 7-inch and the covers and the compilation record, the split, everything. So I found a couple of interviews the band did around the release of the record Victory Lap, and Chris said he felt Victory Lap was going to sound kind of similar to Failed States, but then when it was finished, it didn't sound at all like Failed States, right? It does not sound anything like Failed States. So I was like, why would he even remotely think that? But then last night, I put this record on from start to finish like 3 times in a row. And if you think about songs like When All Your Fears Collide, if When All Your Fears Collide was recorded when Failed States was recorded, it would sound completely different. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you get the guitar tones and the vocal tones and the drum tones and the bass tones on the Failed States LP, and you laid that over the top of the song When All Your Fears Collide, the song transforms instantly. All of a sudden, the guitars are darker, the drums are different, everything is different if you just have different recordings in a certain time and place. So if When All Your Fears Collide was recorded when Failed States came out, it would fit so seamlessly on that record, it would not sound out of place even a little bit. But if you put the actual particular recording of a song like When All Your Fears Collide onto the Failed States LP, it would sound completely out of place. And,
Right.
you know, Chris said they use a different drum kit. They use different guitar cab setups, which Chris just posted on his Patreon with tons of awesome photos of the levels and everything. Like, those photos are awesome. And other little differences that led to a very different sonic experience for listeners on this record. And it is truly amazing how different Failed States and Victory Lap sound. And this got me thinking about the Propaganda experience, the catalog, and I considered for a second how insanely unique each record is sonically. How to Clean Everything sounds nothing like their other records recording-wise. The bass tone on Less Talk More Rock is completely unique to all of their records. The guitars on Today's Empires are completely unique to all the records. The crispness of Potemkin's recording with the totally unique Chris Hanna super high vocal performances. Like if you think about like Fadala's Hearse, like supporting cast sounds totally ageless, like it was recorded like last month. Failed States has the super dense, dark recording tones. And then Victory Lap has like almost like this airy lightness to the sound of it. And like, it's truly amazing how impossible it is to mistake records just based on the recording sound, like at least for me. So I've been thinking a lot about just the sonic experience of going through each record whenever I'm listening to this record in particular, because it sounds like none of their other records. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's an evolution, and I think it would be hard to fully appreciate, you know, musically and the craft and what the band did in terms of like their songwriting, but the sound as well. I think you kind of have to be able to contrast it with everything else to be able to fully enjoy, this record for what it is.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into the music, okay?
Yeah, Greg, and I'm going to go back to that Heavy Blog is Heavy post one more time, because that review ends. If you want to get your shit together and start digging for something better in a hard-rocking way, you can buy the new Propaganda album, Victory Lap. And I think that like the clarity and almost how obvious this song is really just like a hard rock track is like really clear thinking about a few other songs. So Greg, like our listeners who don't follow our social media might have missed an addendum that I shared regarding Failed Imagineer. During that episode, I said I didn't really understand the incongruity between the song's dark lyrical themes and what feels like arena rock cheekiness in the music. So the day after we recorded the episode, I had this thought of the song and how it may be addressing the realization that Chris has failed to create a better world, either as a member of the armed forces in terms of his grandparents, or for him personally as a parent speaking to his children. But it's also kind of saying maybe I can still create something that we can enjoy that brings some happiness, even if things aren't that good, sort of like Disney World, sort of like Failed Imagineers do. And in Tartuffe, the song straight up starts with, "We came here to rock." Not to change minds, not to proselytize, not to convert. It's maybe too late for that to happen. So confident rock and roll bravado is also on display and on this song, Victory Lap. And I think I kind of missed that at first. And, the music is celebratory, though the content is anything worth celebrating. Just think of the contrast again of like the cover and the album title. Man-made structures being swallowed by the ocean due to climate change isn't really evidence of a society at its apex. The music isn't aggressively technical or proggy. It's kind of maybe more melodic punk rock and roll that geniusly, I think, contrasts the lyrics about a failing civilization that arrogantly hopes to take a victory lap, not realizing it may not even survive long enough to even finish the race.
Yeah, man. So I was, I am really interested in the guitars on this particular song, and everybody knows that this song is sort of built around one central main guitar riff, right? So I was like, this seems different for Propaganda. Like, if you think about a song like Tertium Non Datur, which has like 11 riffs that it goes through, like having a song built around this one central riff is pretty unique for this band in a couple of ways,
I agree.
So I reached out to Sue Lin. I wanted to hear Sue Lin's take on the guitar riff in this tune, so we messaged a bit about it, and they said Propaganda wrote a blues riff that is heavy. It's got twang.
Yeah.
But they pulled it off without making it sound out of place in their discography or cheesy. So Sue Lin also said the use of dominant chords is not easy to make sound so in left field as it does here. And Sue Lin also loves the sort of Rush-style parts in the middle of the song, which they constructed to sort of emulate a synth. And so that is one of the things that really jumps out to me is the strength required to play a song like this on guitar. Like if you think of the main riff, sing it. The fifth chord that gets hit, you have to hammer hard on that chord to get it to sound like it does on the record. It's so cool. So you got that real hard hammer on that fifth chord in the central riff. And something that I also love that Chris allowed himself on this record is more space apart from nonstop riffs.
Right? I agree.
So when the vocals come in about the flames engulfing, Chris just allows those strums to hang, which is something I don't feel they've done much in their career, but sort of like revisits the approach of Humane Meats guitar playing, but like letting those big strums sit is something that Chris McCaughan from the Lawrence Arms does so well, and I'm really glad to see Chris Hanna having like a meeting of the minds sort of on these big breathy spaces in this song. And it's like this might be one of my favorite things about this song is, it's got the air between the big meaty riff. It's so amazing that Chris sort of gave himself a break, and it worked, and it comes across as the obviously amazing guitarist that he is. Like my favorite part of the guitars on this one is like the space that lies between the big riff where he's going, you know what I mean? He's got these little flicks of genius in between the big riff. But he's not riffing nonstop. He's got the big riff and then the stuff that he fills in to accentuate the gaps. Love it. It's so cool. What do you think?
Yeah, almost call now that you said that that Sue Lin said kind of call and response like blues.
Yeah,
that's an interesting way of thinking of it. Well, yeah, that main riff itself just builds. I mean, when I think of this song, I think of something just building. It starts with that powerful hard rock riff that is like a single picked note, and then the drums kick in. The riff is played then as power chords, and it adds depth and thickness to the sound. But those leads, like you mentioned, they have picked chords and their slides and their bends that are fun. To me, they don't sound like the best composed guitar licks around, and I kind of think that's the point. It's allowing the band and the audience to have a little bit of a breather after just the nonstop pummeling of failed states. So then the guitars kind of settle on that power chord when Chris's vocals come in, and it echoes and it hums with feedback, allowing his singing to really be front and center, which I love. And you could tell just it's going to be not nearly as dense as failed states, which took me a while to actually adjust to. But
me too.
Yeah, the next line then begins, when the free market, that part, it's not just the humming feedback part. It's changed, and now there's this new layered sound with the single note picked version of the main riff, which I think works super well. And then it builds even more with Say Not All Cops. And then the guitars are just revved up with that palm muted, really powerful riff there. And I love that, Greg. I think it's probably my favorite musical part of the entire song. Then it slows down. The guitar returns to that, more of a single note. That, to me, that would be the Rush part. It has a little bit of a sound with that kind of sounds layered, and then they're flangey layered chords in the background as well as Chris talks through God Are You There. I mean, overall, this really seems like one of the simplest tracks in from maybe today's Empire on. And I of course I mean simple in that I could maybe play the intro riff if I sat down for a couple weeks. So I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just mean that compared to everything else, it's just so clearly different. And I was kind of taken aback when I first heard those guitars, but it all works so well. I just love the direction that you could tell the band's going with.
Yeah, and it's also deceptively difficult. Like my friend Josh, who was our guest for the Resisting Tyrannical Government episode, he learned this song a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me, he's like, it's so much harder than it sounds.
Oh, interesting.
And and Josh has been playing guitar for 30 years.
Right.
And so he said, he's like, do not be deceived by the way it sounds, because it's so much harder, because there's these big leaps. It's like a big leap that he says that and then you have to go to the riffs like a wow 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 wow. So you're bouncing around. So it sounds a lot easier than it is, which is part of its genius.
Yeah.
But I also have to really give a shout out to Jord on this one for that double kick outro with that consistent China blast. It's a standalone moment in Propaganda's catalog, and I wonder how Jord was, what his decision process was like, and I'm definitely going to ask him whenever I finally get to talk to him someday. But was this Jord's idea with that double kick outro on top of that, with that China over the top? Was it somebody else's idea? Because 7 records in, they've never done this. And either way, it's an utterly unique and special moment across their entire catalog. And I'm so glad that it never otherwise happened. I'm so glad this is the only time that they've ever dug into that tool. I know from the Patreon that Jord was tossing around some double kick ideas for Potemkin. But man, they kept that idea on ice for 12 more years.
Right.
And then they unleashed it as a way that would make any lifelong Propaganda fan just go, shut up, and start laughing upon hearing it the first time. The first time I heard that double kick outro, I was like, dude, they finally did it. You know what I mean? And it was just a big smiley moment for me whenever they finally utilized this one tool that they had not used on purpose for their entire career. So I love that part.
Yeah, one word that comes to mind for the drums, kind of related to the guitars, Greg, is rock anthem. And I know that sounds kind of hokey, but when I was watching a drum cover, Jord doesn't really have drum videos, so I found a really good cover from a drummer named AJ on YouTube, and I'm not exactly sure if he plays the same way that Jord does throughout the song, but it's a really, really good cover. And since I listen to so much metal and it's dominated by just far too often just over the top and excessive drumming. I'm not a drummer. It's also maybe just like the guitars, which I made the mistake of thinking that it's, simple or meat and potato stuff. But watching the cymbal use, the constant unique fills, unexpected emphasis on some notes, and I see him kind of rotating between different parts of the kit. Like there's like this section where I think of the toms, and then a section with the snare, then the ride and the crashes, and then the kicks at the end. Like each part of the kit has a distinct function or a section even throughout the song Victory Lap.
Dude, I am so glad that you brought up AJ, because the AJ that you're talking about is AJ Condasta, who is the drummer for, hands down, one of my favorite punk rock bands. They're called Hit the Switch.
Oh.
And AJ plays on this album called Entropic by Hit the Switch.
Yeah.
And they have a song called North Star, which
Yeah.
is easily one of the best punk rock songs of the last 5 years. Like, no doubt about it. So AJ is in an unreal band called Hit the Switch. Check it out.
Cool.
Entropic, incredible record. He's also the drummer for Guttermouth, and he's also the drummer, I think, for the band Jughead's Revenge. So AJ is, dude, that guy is everywhere. So I'm really glad. And I've loved his drum covers videos that he's done during the coronavirus pandemic, because AJ Condasta, if you're hearing this, you rock, man. Love your bands and love your covers. Keep them coming. So, Keith, let's talk a little bit about the some YouTube comments here real quick. What do you think?
Yeah, I got a couple. One says, duality at its finest. The album cover hits me with one set of feels, and the song hits me with another. Well played.
Love that. Well, so I went a little bit of a different route for my YouTube comments on this episode. So first of all, I found a video of Propaganda playing in Toronto.
Cool.
On their 2017 tour, I think it was. And I've decided that I have to see Propaganda in Canada, in Toronto or Winnipeg preferably. I watched a live performance of this song in Toronto, and it was just so crazy. The crowd screaming as the band was coming out. You would think that Rush was about to come out on stage. Like,
Yeah.
the crowd was screaming so loud. I was like, this is crazy. So I messaged Sue Lin, and they said that this was an extremely memorable moment in a crystal clear memory of that show, is the loudness of the band coming out on stage to the crowd just screaming, and then they launched into Victory Lap. So that was one of the things that I found. But I also found a reaction video to this song before the record came out on a YouTube channel by a very stoked YouTuber who goes by the name of Galactic Criminal. And he was so totally pumped listening to this song for the first time. And I realized I was seeing this person hear this song for the first time. And that is kind of a powerful thing, because we've listened to these songs so many times now that, like, I'll never hear them again for the first time.
Right.
But, like, when somebody films a video of themselves hearing their favorite band's new song from their forthcoming album for the first time, I'm going to do it. Like, when the new Propaganda record comes out someday, I'm going to be on Instagram Live listening to this thing, just, like, being like, whoa. And it's just something I have to do. Like, I was just so pumped by this guy's video that I was just loving watching him here for the first time, because he smiles at certain points that I remember smiling at, and, like, that's just such a treasure. Like, seeing the way that this music, like, washes over people for the first time and how special this band is. And then he discusses the anticipation of hearing your favorite band's new song for the first time after a long gap, and it's like just a wash of emotion. So instead of doing YouTube comments this time, I found a couple of YouTube videos that I really liked, and one is the live in Toronto, and one is Galactic Criminal's YouTube reaction. Do you have another traditional unscripted moment style reaction or a comment that you wanted to share?
Yeah, Greg, I actually have two more. One says, every punk rock record should be mixed by Jason Livermore. That guy slays on them faders.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
I have one more. It
What's
says,
your last one?
Yeah, it says, there are a lot of reasons why I love this band. My desire for shred may not be met on each song, but it is almost always going to be made up for by the ability to communicate an idea perfectly, i.e. this song, or in a way that blows my mind, or exposes me to an issue I was unaware of, or somewhere they will just satisfy my need to give a simple middle finger, rarely let down.
Love it. Well, I've got a message, a parting message for this episode, if you will. So my sort of teachable moment that I'm taking away is that we humans like to pat ourselves on the back a whole heck of a lot. But we create situations out of greed. We realize the situations we've created are in fact bad, but we carry on doing them anyway. And we run into a brick wall with a car at 30 miles an hour, metaphorically, of course. Not enough to kill us, but just enough to hurt ourselves a bit. So like humanity is like driving a car 30 miles an hour. We run into a wall and we're hurt a little bit. But like we don't total the car, right? We back up, we put the damaged car in drive, and we hit the accelerator looking for the next wall to run into. And this is what we do. We drive the car, we run into a wall, we back up, we hit another wall shortly thereafter, and it's so predictable and it's so repetitive this way that it really puts like this record in perspective for me. And like here's this band singing about these issues clear as day for years and years, and they wind up being so right about so many things, and instead of being en route to solving these problems imminently, we sit comfortably behind the wheel of our clown car, and we go, "Hyuk, look out for that wall, dummy," and then we run right into it, totally voluntarily. So those are like some of my takeaway thoughts from this song, and it's just got me thinking about cars driving into walls.
Greg, my brain went in a million different directions for what my biggest reflection or teachable moment for the song Victory Lap could be. But what seemed to stick out the most was how many teachable moments I've shared with our listeners that feel maybe a bit like despair or wanting better for so many, but feeling limited in what I can actually do to affect change. But like I concluded with This Is Your Life, it's important to not just be consumed by the things that weigh us down, like the news or the future. Regarding the line, "The day the rapture came," I think of something Carl Sagan wrote. He said, "In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. It's up to us." And that's a ton of pressure, Greg. So this might be a little bit of a cop-out or a simple response, but I'm just going to say sometimes it's okay to rock out as long as the music doesn't drown out too much of reality.
Awesome. Would you like for me to rate this song first this week, since I always make you go first?
Go for it.
All right, so this is an impressive song. The more I listen to it, the more nuance I catch, the more I appreciate it. The modern relevance of this song encapsulates such an incredible range of issues: sexist culture, border wall nationalism, the ultra-rich, the utterly pathetic way many of us spend our time, spiritual longing for something greater and more meaningful, economic class and the way it rips countries into human factions. Like, this song is about all of that. I like, it's mind-boggling how big the topic and content of this song is and how few words they do it in. Like, it's just crazy. And like, the music on this song is so tastefully yet almost conservatively performed. Nobody overplays. The centrality of this core riff differs so drastically from a song like Tertium Non Datur, which has tons of riffs. And the delicacy of the music between the central riff is so artistic and beautiful. Like, I feel like a song like this could have appeared on Less Talk, More Rock, but only if Less Talk, More Rock came out after Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes. The story of bands enhancing their toolboxes to combine sounds that speak to all of their old sounds is truly special, and I don't know how this band pulls it off so seamlessly, but like, this song is like a mashup of Today's Empires and Less Talk, but it dials back, touches on so many important topics that we're dealing with here and now in 2021, and that's where their age as a band and their experience shows up. So I am giving this an enthusiastic 5 out of 5.
Yeah, Greg, given what I think the band is trying to do here and the evolution of their sound, their ability to craft songs that are as smart as they are catchy, I honestly think this is one of the best songs in their entire catalog. I would rather hear this live than pretty much most songs from Today's Empires and before. And it feels like the next step in the band making the music that they actually want to make. And for all of those reasons, Greg, this is also a 5 out of 5.
Fantastic. Well, everybody out there listening, thank you so much for checking out our Victory Lap episode. Thank you so much to Cheska Colombo from On the Impossible Pod for joining me. Thank you to Hoss Bossman for the cover and also joining me for a conversation. Thank you to Justin Santora for sending us the artwork for this particular episode. Be sure to check out justinsantora.com and check out Justin's sale that we mentioned in the very beginning of this episode. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at PropagandyPod. You can email us at propagandapod@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. The clouds they opened up, and not a single person went to the chromatic whistle of a carousel collide.